Good morning. Welcome everyone to Go Live with replaykit. In this session, we're going to tell you about all the new features that we have added to the framework. I am Ben Harry, a software engineer on the game technologies team here at Apple. And later, you'll be hearing from Edo Niskander. Now we know people love to record their gameplay and share those recordings on social media. replaykit gives our users those abilities with little effort required from you, the developer. To get started today, I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about the existing features that are offered with replaykit. replaykit provides the ability to record your app's audio and visual content. In addition, you may enable microphone recording. By doing so, your users can provide voice commentary while playing their games. After a user creates a recording, they may share the recording directly from your game using the system share sheet. replaykit has a simple API, and as you're going to see today, a small amount of code is required to bring these features to your games. Moving along, replaykit will generate HD quality videos with little impact on your game's performance and uses a minimal amount of power from the device's battery. Here at Apple, privacy is very important to us. So we have implemented some privacy safeguards. For example, we present a user prompt before recording begins, so users can give permission before recording their gameplay. Furthermore, recordings will exclude system UI, including notifications. Therefore, when you receive a text message while you're playing a game, that message is not going to be recorded. Finally, replaykit was made available in iOS 9. So this was a list of the current features that we offer in replaykit. Now, I'm going to take a minute to list the new features that have been added to the replaykit framework. First up, we are bringing replaykit support to Apple TV. So now, you'll be able to record your gameplay and share it directly from your TV OS games. The next new feature we have added is live broadcasting. Now, users will be able to broadcast their gameplay in real time to third-party broadcast services. And for our third and final feature, we're adding support to record the FaceTime camera. In addition, we have made enhancements to the microphone recording API. So before I get into replaykit and Apple TV, I'm going to take a minute to give you an overview of the replaykit architecture. I want to show you how your app uses the framework to interact with the operating system to create a recording. So here we have your application. Your application needs to notify the operating system when it wants to begin recording. So replaykit provides an RP screen recorder class. You will tell this class to start recording. At this moment, a message is sent to the replay daemon. The replay daemon will start writing your app's data to a movie file. When you tell the RP screen recorder to stop recording, the replay daemon will finish writing your movie, and now we have a movie on the system. Now this movie needs to get back up to your application so your users can preview the recording they just made. To do so, we provide the RP Preview View Controller. You present this view controller in your game, so now your users have an interface where they can preview, they can edit, and they can share the video that they just made. As we just saw, we have the RP Screen Recorder class. This is the class you will use to start, stop, and to discard recordings. You will also use it to check the availability to record on the device. There's a delegate property on the RP Screen Recorder, and it will notify you if the availability to record changes. Also, it will let you know if a recording stops due to an error. The second class that I brought up was the RP Preview View Controller. You present this view controller in your game to give your users the ability to preview the recording, edit and trim the recording on iOS, and to share the recording directly from the game. We also have a delegate method on this class, and this delegate will let you know when the user is finished with the preview user interface. So this is the replaykit architecture and the classes you will use to record and share content on both iOS and tvOS. Which now brings me to replaykit on Apple TV. And to begin, I'm going to show you a demo. So here I have a game called Fox. Fox was developed for WWDC 2015. It was developed using SceneKit. You may also recognize it because it's available as sample code on our developer website. The goal of this game is to walk around the level and to collect these flowers like the one I just got. So I'm going to make my way through the level and collect the flowers. There's 3 on the level. I've got the first. You can optionally collect these pearls along the way, but I'm just going to focus on the flowers. So I got 2. Now I know the third flower is on the top, and it's in the middle on the top of the rock. So I'm going to make my way here. So here I'm going to bring up my game menu because I want to record this. There's an obstacle up ahead, and I've been practicing this a lot this past week. And so I want to share this with my friends to show them that I can get through this most of the time now. So I'm going to start my recording, and here's the consent prompt I mentioned, and I'm going to give permission. So now I'm recording. So notice the recording indicator at the top of the screen. This lets me know that a recording is taking place. Okay, so I made it through the fire. So all I have to do now is make my way to the end, to the final flower, so I can finish the level and ultimately finish the recording. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to stop my recording. Now, once I'm stopped, I have the option where I can preview or share the video I just made. So I'm going to start out by previewing. So we have a video playback, and we have a timeline that we can scrub forward and backward. I'm just going to start playing it. Notice here that recording indicator is not included in the recording. I'm going to show you how this was accomplished in just a few minutes. So I have a video. I'm happy with how it turned out. So now I want to share it. So I'm going to go over here and select Share. And now we're presented with an airdrop interface. So I'm going to grab my phone. I'm going to select my phone. Oops. So anyway, when I do accept the file on my phone and the file is transferred, once it's on my phone, I do have the ability where I can preview the video, I can edit and trim the video if I wanted to, and finally I can share it to my favorite social media sites. So that was how replaykit looks on Apple TV. I now want to take a few moments and call out 4 main points from the demo. And then I'm going to show you the code that corresponds with each of those points in a minute. So first I'm going to begin. I have the in-game menu where I started my recording. Then we had the gameplay where we had the recording indicator on screen. Back to the game menu to stop the recording. And finally, when I stopped the recording, I had the options to preview or share the recorded video. So now I'm going to walk through each one of these and show you the code that corresponds to each one. I'm going to begin with Start Recording. So once I press my Start Recording button, first I'm going to grab the shared instance of the RP screen recorder. And I simply going to tell it to start recording. Now once I'm recording, I'm going to present the indicator view. As I mentioned in the video, the indicator was not included in the recording. This is because replaykit will only record the application's main window. Therefore, I'm going to create a new UI window. And then the indicator view. The indicator view will be your responsibility to create. This is because now you can make it match the style of your game. So we have an indicator view. I'm going to instantiate an instance of that indicator view and simply add it as a subview to that main window I created to the window I created above. Now that indicator view is on screen, and we know we're recording. When we're done recording, we press the Stop Record button. Again, I'm going to grab the shared instance of the RP screen recorder. Now, notice we return the Preview View Controller, which is the RP Preview View Controller class I mentioned earlier. I'm going to hide my indicator view. And here it's important that we hold on to a reference of the Preview View Controller because we're going to use it to present it in the next step for previewing and sharing the video. Finally, I'm going to set the delegate. So now we saw that we have one Preview View Controller, but we had 2 interfaces, one for previewing and one for sharing. So on Apple TV, we have introduced a new mode property. When we want to preview, we simply set the mode to preview and then present the view controller. Similarly, to share, we have the mode property. We're going to set that mode to share and again present the view controller. And now we'll be presented with the airdrop interface. In both cases, when the user is done with each interface, we have a delegate method that's going to be called. Preview controller did finish. It's important when this gets called that you dismiss the preview view controller since your app was responsible for presenting it. Now finally, when we're done with the recording and we know that we no longer need it, it's good practice to discard that recording. Now replaykit will automatically discard the previous recording when a new recording begins. This is because only one recording is allowed at a time per app. You can also explicitly discard the recording when you know that the preview will no longer be available. For example, maybe at the end of a level, there could be no more opportunity to present a preview. So now you can explicitly discard it by calling RP Screen Recorder's discard recording method. So in these last few slides, I have shown you the small amount of code that is required to bring these features to your tvOS games. Thus, I encourage you all to add replaykit to your tvOS apps and also to your iOS apps if you have not done so already. So now let me take a minute to summarize replaykit on Apple TV. Now with replaykit on Apple TV, you can record your app audio and video content. On Apple TV, the microphone is reserved by the system, so you cannot provide voice commentary on the platform. But you can allow users to preview their videos, and they can share their videos directly from your games. As you saw, we have a very simple API. In fact, it's the same API that we offer for our iOS. And all of these features for Apple TV are going to be available new in tvOS 10. So that was replaykit on Apple TV. So now it's time to move on to the second of our new features, which I personally am very excited about. So at this time, please welcome Edwin Iskander up to the stage.
All right, thanks, Ben. Hey, how is everybody doing? My name is Edwin Iskander. I'm a software engineer on the game technologies team here at Apple. And like Ben, I'm super excited to talk to you guys about our next feature, live broadcast. So with live broadcast, players will be able to broadcast gameplay to third-party streaming services directly from their iOS or tvOS device. So this is really exciting because this is the first time this will be possible without any additional hardware or third-party SDKs. We'll also be allowing your users to take advantage of their device's powerful FaceTime camera and microphone to provide rich commentary all in real time. And finally, we're going to do this all securely and ensure that all audio and video data is only accessible to the system and the broadcast service. All right, so to illustrate how this works, we've been working with Flare Games, who have implemented the broadcast feature in their flagship game, Olympus Rising. So it's a really awesome game. It's available in the App Store today. And it has this unique blend of strategy, RPG, and action elements. OK, now that we have a game to broadcast from, we also need somewhere to broadcast to. So we've also been working with MobCrush, a broadcast service that specializes in mobile games. All right, so now that we have a game and a service, we're ready to roll. So let's see this in action. All right, so in Olympus Rising, the Flare developers have implemented an in-game button to start broadcasting. To initiate a broadcast, the user taps on this button, and they're presented with broadcast services that they have pre-installed on their device. In this particular example, the user has installed the MobCrush app, so it appears on this list. So at this point, the user taps on the MobCrush icon, and they're presented with MobCrush's UI to set up the broadcast. The user then goes ahead and adds a title for their broadcast. And once they're done, they simply press on the Start Broadcast button, which returns to the game, which then presents a countdown so that the player can get ready and finally go live. And now that they're live and the user is playing, video and audio data is streamed to the broadcast service. Spectators all over the world can now launch the MobCrush app from their device and watch the gameplay in near real time. Within the MobCrush app, spectators can also discuss the gameplay as they watch. And even cooler is that broadcasters can even be instantly notified when this happens while playing their game. So just like in sports, there's something really special about watching an event live. Now this will be possible natively with iOS and tvOS games as well. All right, so now that we've seen the entire flow, as a game developer, you're probably wondering what it takes to implement this feature in your games. Here's the player flow broken down. As you can see, there are many steps: initiating the broadcast, selecting a broadcast service, setting up the broadcast, starting and stopping the broadcast, indicating a broadcast is in progress, and also uploading that video and audio data to the backend servers. So this might look a little bit daunting at first, but the good news for game developers is 3 of these steps are handled by replaykit and the broadcast service. So let's take a look at the code for each of these steps. So to initiate a broadcast programmatically, we use a new class named RP Broadcast Activity View Controller and call its load method to get an instance of it. We then simply present it as we would any UI view controller, which will then present the user with a list of broadcast services and ultimately allow the user to set up the broadcast. Just before we do that, though, we also set the Activity View Controller's delegate method because we want to be notified when the setup is complete. At this point, the user can select the service to broadcast to and sets up their broadcast. And once they're done setting up, the Activity View Controller's delegate method is fired. And this delegate method is supplied an instance of another new class, RP Broadcast Controller, which allows us to start a broadcast. But before we do that, though, we also want to dismiss the Activity View Controller, since we're the ones that presented it, start our in-game countdown timer, and when the countdown timers end, we finally start the broadcast by calling start broadcast on the new RP Broadcast Controller instance that was passed in. And now we're live. And since we're live broadcasting, we need to clearly indicate this to the user. So Olympus Rising does this very well by animating the broadcast button. Since their game has fairly complex controls, they're reusing the button UI to also indicate an in-progress broadcast, maximizing their available screen space. Something to note is that the indicator is strictly required during broadcasting and will be enforced during app review. It's important that you add this to your games. To programmatically check if broadcast is in progress, simply query the isBroadcasting property of the broadcast controller. You can use the value of this property to start or stop animating your indicator UI. To allow users to finish broadcasting, the Flare developers have implemented a flyout UI that reveals a submenu, which includes the stop button. When the player presses on the stop button, we simply call finish broadcast on the controller. When broadcasting is finished, we update our UI. All right, now that we've covered the basic flow, let's take a look at a few more details, like error handling. So since there are a lot of moving parts to this feature, it's possible that things could go wrong. So it's important to handle this gracefully. So let's take a look at how we do this during a broadcast. To handle errors, simply set the delegate to the broadcast controller. Once set, your delegate will now have its didFinishWithError method called when an error occurs. And when this is triggered, you should let the user know about it and update any necessary UI. So another detail to consider is when the user backgrounds the app or the app is interrupted during a broadcast, like when receiving a phone call, for example. So when the application goes to the background, replaykit will automatically pause the broadcast. So in this particular example, when the application is reactivated and comes back to the foreground, we prompt the user and ask them if they would like to resume their broadcast. If the user wants to resume, call the resume broadcast method. If they don't, simply call the finish broadcast method. And that's it. For the entire flow, the game developer needs to only interact with 2 classes and its delegates, RP Broadcast Activity View Controller to present broadcast services and allow users to set up a broadcast, and RP Broadcast Controller to start, pause, resume, and finish a broadcast. As you can see, it couldn't be easier to add broadcasting into your games, and I urge you to do so because the benefits are huge. There's really no better way to spread the word, increase player engagement, and even build a community around your games. So that covers game implementation, but what about the broadcast services that players are streaming to, like Mobcrush? Let's take a moment to talk briefly about what those services are responsible for. So for all the game developers in the audience or watching online, I just want to make it extra clear that the topics discussed in the next section are not your responsibility to implement in your games. So let's go back to that flow diagram. We've seen that the game is responsible for initiating the broadcast and controlling when to start and stop a broadcast. We've also seen that the UI for broadcast selection is taken care of by replaykit's Broadcast Activity View Controller. So this leaves us with 2 remaining tasks: setting up the broadcast and uploading video and audio data to the backend servers. So to allow broadcast service to accomplish these steps, we're introducing a new pair of app extensions specifically for this feature. A UI extension to allow the user to set up a broadcast, and a non-UI extension for processing and uploading the audio and video data. For those of you unfamiliar with extensions, they're targets that are embedded in your parent application and are a way to extend your app so that it can execute alongside other apps. They run in a separate process from your parent app, but can share data with your parent application, which can be handy for sharing things like authentication data, for example. So one thing to keep in mind, though, is that extensions are limited in resources compared to applications. So try to refrain from doing resource-intensive tasks within them. We made it incredibly easy to set up these extensions via an Xcode template. These are available as new targets for both iOS and tvOS. If created from this template, the extensions will be pre-configured so they will show up in the broadcast activity view controller list that you see. So let's take a look at the two new extensions that a broadcast service needs to implement, starting with the broadcast UI extension. The UI extension has a few key responsibilities. First, it's responsible for authenticating the user and providing sign-up if the user is not yet registered. Ideally, this should all be done within the extension so that the user's experience is not interrupted, but it's also perfectly acceptable to link out to the parent application as long as the user has a way to be redirected back to the game. So during sign-up, it's also required that the user be shown terms and conditions for using the service and be provided the ability to accept or decline those terms and conditions. So as we saw earlier, the UI extension is also responsible for allowing the user to set up their broadcast, like adding a title to it. And it can optionally allow the user to notify others that broadcast is about to begin via social media. Finally, its final responsibility is notifying replaykit and ultimately the game that broadcast setup is complete. So now that we looked at the UI extension, let's switch over to the upload extension. It's responsible for receiving and processing video and audio data and uploading that data to the backend servers. So we are aware there are many different implementations of data processing and uploading for live streaming. So I won't be getting into any specific implementations during this session. Instead, if you're a broadcast service, please get in touch with us so that we can work directly with you. This way we can implement a solution that delivers the best experience to our customers. So going back to our flow diagram, now we've looked at the broadcast setup and upload. We've gone through the entire broadcast flow. And we've clearly broken down the responsibilities of the game, replaykit, and the broadcast service. And that was live broadcasting. We really feel that this is a game-changing feature that your players are going to love. And for developers, it's going to introduce a new way for your fans to experience your games, not only by playing them, but by watching them as well. So before we go, I'd like to end with a few new enhancements we made to the API around commentary for iOS, namely support for the front-facing camera, and also a new capability for the microphone. So first up, we've added FaceTime camera support, making it incredibly convenient for you to add picture-in-picture video commentary to your games. Player reactions are priceless, and always add that special flavor to recordings and broadcasts. So to enable this in Olympus Rising, the Flare developers have added a button to toggle the camera in their flyout menu. Pressing this button enables the camera, displaying a preview in the top left. So let's look at the API they used to achieve this. To toggle the camera on, we simply set the isCameraEnabled property to true on RP Screen Recorder. This turns on the camera hardware and populates a new property in RP Screen Recorder called Camera Preview View, which is a subclass of UI View. Since it is UI View, you can simply add it as a subview to your game view and even freely position it so that it does not obstruct gameplay. You can even attach a gesture recognizer to it and allow the user to position it manually if you wanted. So looking at the code here, we're simply setting the isCameraEnabled property to true during recording or broadcast. Then we get a camera preview view instance. Then set its geometry to position it, and then simply add it as a subview to your game view. So now that we have video commentary, we also need to pair that with audio. So microphone recording was included last year in iOS 9, but now we're including the ability to mute it during recordings as well. So we all know broadcasters always have something interesting to say, but sometimes even they need a break. So Olympus Rising makes this really easy by including a microphone toggle in their flyout menu. Implementing the actions to this microphone toggle couldn't be simpler. The existing is microphone enabled property on Opry screen recorder can be set to true if you want to enable the microphone, and false when you want to mute it. Again, this can all be done during a broadcast or recording session. All right, so that concludes our session, and I really hope you enjoyed it. With the powerful new broadcast feature and now support for Apple TV, we can't wait to play and watch your games live on both iOS and tvOS. For more information, visit developer.apple.com, session 601. And during the week, also to make sure to check out our other game technology sessions, What's New in Gameplay Kit, Sprite Kit, and Game Center. Okay, so that's it for me. Thanks so much for attending this session, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week here at WWDC. Thanks so much.